Hello, all you Ohio ant nerds out there. Shout out to Killer Man, who was just here to pick up a colony. And the colony I wanted to give him was this one, but it has a problem. So he ended up taking the other one. And the problem is something that we run into no matter who you are, no matter what kind of ants you have. If you're raising queens, you're going to get this once in a while. You are going to get fungus. And there's not much you can do about it. There are hundreds of thousands of fungus species, and the spores are microscopic, and they're in the air everywhere, no matter how careful you are. And we use an alcohol bath for all the instruments, and fresh tissue paper every time we work with the tubes and the ants and stuff. But no matter how careful and cautious you are, you're going to get mold sometimes. So you're going to need to get ants to switch tubes, and some species switch easy, and some don't. This is a Formica subceracea. They tend to switch pretty easily, so I was talking to him about it and decided that I'd make a video because we all run into this, and for you, experienced folks out there, you know what you're doing. But I just wanted to share how we do things. Not that it's right, and I'd love people to comment and give me a better way to do this. But I've seen videos where people just take one tube and attach it to the next tube and just shake the heck out of it until all the brood and the ants fall down. But obviously that's like brutal, and that's going to stress your ants and can cause injuries and all kinds of issues. So that's probably not best. And then the other technique is just to take tubes and tape them together. But the problem with that is there no longer is a cotton ball that lets air in like this. So if you don't have a cotton ball that lets air in, then not only can they suffocate if they're there for a long period of time, but the other problem is they get hot, and there's no way for the heat and the moisture to dissipate, and they can end up, kind of being in like a greenhouse, and it can be fatal pretty quickly. And I've made that mistake once, I'm sad to say. So the way we do it now that works out well for us is we take a piece of mesh, and this is like a plastic 300 micron mesh, and put a piece of tape on it like this, and then wrap that around a new test tube setup that we want them to move into like this. And then you can take this and then just attach it to your old set like that. And what that does is that leaves, I'll see how close I can get. You can see a little mesh opening, so it's basically like a little screen, like a little plastic screen. Sorry for the shaky hands, I'm old. And it lets some air get in, it lets the heat dissipate and stuff like that. So, and then of course what you do is you take the old tube and put it into the light, and take the new tube and put it into the dark, which is hard to do with only two hands, but I accomplished that. And then you have the colony exposed to the light, which they don't like. And you can see this is a really, really funky tube, and it's going to happen, and this happened really, really fast. I check these ants when they're in this stage, when they have nanetics. We check them twice a week, and we give them honey twice a week and protein once a week. And I checked them 3 days ago, and there was a tiny little rim of fungus on the front of the cotton ball, kind of in the back where that dark brown stuff is. There was a little rim, and then in 3 days it did this. So the thing about fungus is that there are spores everywhere, and the vast majority of the times they don't meet the criteria they need to grow, but when they do, they grow like unbelievably fast. So if you just hit the right conditions, it can take over a tube in days and kill your ants. So if you see a discoloration of the water, or if you see the cotton getting discolored or whatnot, you want to switch your ants, and there's lots of ways to do it. This is how we do it, and it seems to work okay. Formica can move quickly. You can use heat and more light to accelerate the process, and I have a full spectrum light that we put on there, and they definitely won't like that nearly as much. There's a nice little dark brand new tube there, and a light tube that will over the next few minutes heat up. If you are going to use heat, I would urge you to be very cautious and not leave the room and watch them closely. But I'll view them for a little while, and you'll probably see that they will start to get, no pun intended, antsy, and start running around. And usually the queen in a Formica species like this, we usually see the queen bug out within 5 minutes. She'll go to the new place. The workers are often less inclined to move. And the workers are the ones that actually make the decision to move. So maybe the queen's moving already, I don't know. Maybe, how about that? Sorry for the silence, but I'm not going to talk just because it's silent. I don't have anything else to say. The queen did go to the new place. I'm going to cover this up and leave it alone. So at this point, it's just the workers deciding to bring the brood over. And usually it's not quick. I mean, that's actually about as quick as I've ever seen a queen move over. But Formica are really easy with this. Lasius are brutal. Lasius will take forever to move tubes. And I think that has to do mostly with the nature of the species. There are some species that are much more migratory in nature where they'll switch colonies readily and dig new tunnels and abandon old tunnels and that kind of thing. And there are other species that just tend to stay in their same habitat, their same nest for a long period of time. And if it's a species that tends to be migratory, which Formica species are more migratory than Lasius species, then they're going to tend to switch tubes easier. But it's been long enough already. You get the idea. So they're going to run around. I'm not going to leave the heat on much longer. I'm going to leave it on long enough to kind of convince the queen to stay on the other side. And when I turn it off, she may come back, and then I'll turn it on for a few minutes, and she'll go back over, and I'll just kind of, keep an eye on them over the course of the afternoon, and eventually they'll decide to move. It's actually picking up brood. I wonder if they're going to move. Nope. All right, I'll end it here. You get the gist.